Oh, well, thanks for coming this evening. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. Susan and I moved to Lancaster in 2011. At that point in my life, I had begun birding more intently than I had before. I joined the Worcester County Bird Club, as she mentioned. It's called the Forbush Bird Club. And I started investigating where to bird in this area. So I began photographing the birds I was seeing as a means of being better able to identify them. So someone recently asked me how long I've been a photographer. I laughed and told her I don't really think of myself as a photographer. I think of myself as a birder with a camera. The idea for this presentation started when I was giving a similar presentation at the Clinton Library about a conservation area where I bird frequently in Clinton. Then one of our neighbors came up afterward and said, "Why don't you do this about Lancaster?" So I talked to Rachel and the presentation was born. So what you see on this slide is a list of the places I think are good places to bird and or hike in Lancaster. For this presentation, I'm going to start on the eastern side of town at the border with Bolton and move along Route 117 and then south and then back toward this, and then up more toward the center of town and end up at Dexter Drumlin.
Can we get copies of these slides? Or
Not the slides. The only handout I gave is the map. Sorry. It is being recorded and it will be available on the Sterling-Lancaster local access. Thank you for that compliment that you want copies of the slides. So Bolton Flats is a large area managed by the Department of Conservation and Recreation. The first part I want to talk about is the area north of 117. So let me paint the picture for you. And we'll start out on the trail. Let me get the pointer here. The trail that goes along this way. And when you start out there are trees on the western side, and there's a stream that runs through there. In the spring, like now, it's heavily flooded. Sometimes the whole trail is flooded to the point where you need knee-high boots to even get in there. To the east, it's marsh. There are scrubby bushes along the marsh side, which is important for seeing some of these birds. And then when you get out past the woods, it opens up into a field, and you can look across to where they actually farm, but there's a big expanse in between the trail and where they can actually farm, which is where we see the birds. So in the spring, it floods, and so a lot of birds that like to wade or dabble congregate there. So this screenshot is from an application called eBird. Those of us who post our sightings on eBird are referred to as citizen scientists. I have to chuckle whenever I hear that because the major qualification to be a citizen scientist is you have to know that it's ebird.org, not ebird.com, to be able to log in. And actually, I'm joking. If you log in ebird.com, it switches you over to ebird.org automatically. Of course, you have to be motivated to do it. So in the spring, we see a lot of migrating warblers, and they are in the trees and scrubby bushes that I described. So these American redstarts are just one example, and they tend to come through in April and May. These fast-moving little birds are easily found, but a challenge to photograph. They hop around, they tend to stay in the sticks. The ruby-crowned kinglet migrates through, but they nest further north. The blue-gray gnatcatchers, also small and jumpy, they will stay and nest in this area. It's a good place for sparrows. Both the scrubby bushes and in the initial section, as well as the bushes that line the path, are great for finding sparrows. So the Lincoln sparrow and the fox sparrow are sparrows that birders are always looking for. They're not common. The swamp sparrow is common at this place and pretty much throughout the summertime. When the area is flooded, we get wading birds. I got this picture of a glossy ibis because as I was walking out on the path, another birder was walking back to the parking lot. And he said, see that glossy ibis way out there by the greenhouses? Well, he left and I was the only one there. And so I just watched the bird and it was just feeding and it was ignoring me. So it got closer and closer. And fortunately, the sun was at my back. So it got close enough I was able to get this picture and we can see the iridescence on the back wings, which is why it's called glossy ibis. A lot of times when you see them in the field, they just look dark. But this time it worked out well. I found these greater yellowlegs on another afternoon. Again, I was out there by myself. The field wasn't that flooded, but there was a puddle way in the corner. And I saw these birds hopping around, and so I ambled back there. I took my time, was able to not scare them because they were feasting on some tadpoles that were in that water. And they really didn't pay any attention to me. So I was lucky enough to be able to just get close enough to get this photograph. This is a Wilson snipe. What?
Are these common things that we would just see if we went out? Or they just
If
happen
you go out there right now, you probably see some yellow legs, either greater or lesser yellow legs.
I just, I mean, these are
Glossy ibis arrive for a few days each year, maybe not every year. If you're lucky, birders tell each other when they're there, so they're not that common. This is a Wilson snipe. There are lots of them out there right now. They're really hard to see. I had to wait a long time for this one to pop up on this little hillock, whatever this is it's standing on, in order to get the shot. Most of them, I can just see the head. And you can see them moving around in there. It's easy to just walk out there and walk back and not even know they're there. I got this picture one evening when I was out there, and the remarkable thing is this is springtime, and these are all males. Like, why are they all males? You know, why aren't they matched up? So I call this photo the stag party.
Very good. Breakfast at midnight.
In the spring, the snowmelt and the spring rains flood the field, so this is a favorite place for dabbling ducks. A dabbling duck is one that doesn't dive underwater and eat fish, but dabbles in the mud looking for things to eat. The green-winged teals are shy. If you get within a couple hundred feet of them, they fly away. The only good thing about that is you can see the iridescent green in the wings, which you can't see when they're swimming in the water. The other two are blue-winged teals, and similar situation. You don't see the blue in the wings because they're just enjoying dabbling in the water. So blue-winged teals are not common. There were a couple of them out there yesterday, but often people will tell each other when they're seeing blue-winged teals because they kind of a pair or two pair visit every spring. The green-winged teals, dozens or hundreds of them come, especially if you're the first one out in the morning. You before anybody has scared them. A lot of times they'll overnight there, so you can see a lot of them. So the marsh on the eastern side of the trail has a good variety of marsh-type birds. So Virginia rails are a challenge to photograph because they like to stay hidden. You can often hear them calling to each other, but I was lucky enough to get this just at the edge and just going from one hidden place to another. Marsh wrens are like that too. They make more racket. You very often can hear them, but it's a challenge to actually see them. Once in a while, they'll pop up to the top and you get a chance to take a picture or get a good look. So there's another area designated Bolton Flats, Lancaster, and this is to distinguish between the north side of Route 117 and the south side of Route 117. So you can see here 147 birders, so fewer people have done lists for this side, 455 checklists instead of thousands, and 210 species. So it's harder to get back in there. I've got a picture. So on the map, just this very first portion is easily accessed. After that, you have to cross the river. Now this is a dead-end branch of the National River, but it still gets quite full, like it would be right now. It would be very hard to get across there. And then you can walk a little ways, but then you have to cross it again. And there's actually a built-up area where tractors and in the dry part of the year can actually drive across, but right now it would be hard to get through there. So springtime birding is not easy. In the fall, it dries out, and especially the blackbirds find the cornfields quite inviting. I got through there in the winter when the river was frozen one time, and I was lucky enough to find this river otter having just caught a big fish. He scurried along and sort of dived into the riverbank and disappeared. So I think he was wintering out there. I don't know. Didn't see him again. Next, we go to the other side of the section that's called Bolton Flats, Pine Hill Road Grassland. This is an old gravel pit that's managed to attract and support grassland-type birds. So to get there, continuing west on Route 117, and then this is called Harvard Road here. And then this brown barrier, that's the edge of Devens, the Army training area. So Harvard Road functionally dead ends into Pine Hill Road now. And then this dead ends here as well. There's private property this direction, but there's a gate that won't let you go any further. So it's not hard to figure out where you have to stop. This first section, when you're walking, is wooded. And then you get out to the grassland. I hope it's apparent from this aerial photograph. So this is a little less heavily birded, but you see there still have been thousands of checklists, so less heavily birded than north of Route 117. It lacks the prominent water features, so you don't get the same number of species, but there are still some interesting species that attract birders. So once you get past that initial wooded section, this is the view of the grassland. In that initial portion, you can easily find pine warblers in the spring. Right now, they're singing. You can just go out there. Pretty much, I've been out there morning and afternoon, and they've been singing every time I've been out there. And I believe they do nest there. The palm warbler migrates through, and they head further north. And they have been in the area this week. That's the first time I've seen them. Now, I put sound in here. I'm going to press the button and see if it works.
There we go.
All right, so the first one is the pine warbler. So this is the trills part of the talk, in case you didn't catch it. Right. So it's just a steady trill. Challenging to tell the difference between the pine warbler trill and the chipping sparrow. Thank you. The second one is the field sparrow, and that's out there right now too. So this recording is actually my recording of these two birds from yesterday. So I'm going to play it again. Pine warbler first, then field sparrow. So the thing to remember about the field sparrow, the first person that described it to me is think about when you drop a ping pong ball. Is it boom, 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 boom. Rapidly increasing pace. Different from the prairie warbler, the prairie warbler, the tone goes higher. So the field sparrow goes faster, but it doesn't go up in pitch. So this is a picture of the prairie warbler. This is one of the best places in town to see the prairie warbler. Not exclusively the only place, but in the summer, once they arrive, they're not here yet, but once they arrive, reliable place to find them. And then kestrels are here. This kestrel is actually perched on a bat box. I don't know if the box has actually been useful at getting bats to flourish at the grassland or not, but the kestrels like to perch on anything that allows them to see 360 degrees. So I've seen them perched on this one, and there's some trees high in the grassland and whatnot too. So I've seen 3 kestrels out there. There's probably a 4th, but I haven't, when they're flying around, it's hard to know if you've seen this one or that one already. So there are at least 3, so hopefully at least 2 of them will be nesting and have some offspring there this year. A couple summers ago, when the fires were burning the Canadian woods, these more northerly birds came down here, the red crossbills, and they actually nested here. And I was able to get these pictures just in that first picture I showed you where there were just a couple of pine trees. That's where these birds were. And the red plumage is the male crossbill. The female has yellow feathers. The one with the streaked breast is a juvenile. And so this picture shows a juvenile begging food from the parent. All around the edge of the grassland are tall trees, and in those tall trees you can almost always find at least one indigo bunting singing in the summertime. The eastern bluebirds, they're actually there most of the year, and it's frequent to see them perched. This is a little 2 or 3 foot pine tree that the bluebirds perched on, and that's one of the common places to see them. They will perch on higher ones too, but when you're walking, you tend to look straight out, and so it's easy to find them there. On the trail, it's also fun to see butterflies. So I'm not a butterfly expert, but I read somewhere that they used to call the red admiral the red admirable. So that was a cute story. The viceroy butterfly is the smaller cousin of the monarch butterfly. I'm told that the monarch butterfly doesn't taste good to birds. So the viceroy is imitating the monarch, hoping it won't get eaten. Now, if you're used to seeing these butterflies, you can kind of tell, well, this is smaller, so this is probably a viceroy. But if that's not good enough, this dark line on the lower wing is unique to the viceroy. The monarchs don't have that. So once in a while, you see a bald eagle flying overhead. Now this is an immature plumage of the bald eagle. The ravens, there have been a large number of ravens. The raven population around here increased back when the West Nile virus wiped out a lot of the crows. So they were sort of in the same ecological niche, and it sort of made room for the ravens to flourish. And they haven't given it back up. A friend of mine and I were out there in March, and we saw 8 ravens. eBird gave me a little red exclamation point and said, "Really? You saw 8 ravens?" So, and they really do that. I mean, there's a little red exclamation point, and then you have to write some comment saying, yeah, say, yeah, I really,
Just until, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, the ravens weren't around.
No, they weren't. I mean, they were around, but they were rare. Yeah. And they're not rare anymore.
No, I guess not.
Yeah. This is also a great place to see northern harriers. The Bolton Flats area as well. Very common to see northern harriers, which aren't very common other places. So the one on the left is the female. So her plumage is brown, and people describe the face as looking like an owl. The one on the right is the male, gray and more even plumage, referred to as the gray ghost. Nicknamed, I should say, the gray ghost. So sometimes northern hares perch on the ground. So I was lucky enough to find this gray ghost on the left perched on the ground this winter. And I'm looking at that expression on his face, and I'm thinking, he's saying, "You're going to make me move, aren't you?" So I got closer, and he moved. And this is actually him about to pounce on a rodent. There are woodpeckers in the woods at the edges of the grassland, but the flickers feed on ants on the ground. So this is a female northern flicker. The males have a black mustache coming off by their beak. So that's how you can easily tell. So it's a great place for sparrows. On the left, the chipping sparrows are common here in the summer, and they have arrived this week. And it's a great place to learn the distinction between the chipping sparrow song and the pine warbler song. And it can drive you crazy, but at least you have an opportunity to hear them both in the same place. On the right, the tree sparrows, in my mind, kind of replace the chipping sparrows. The chipping sparrows go south in the winter, and the tree sparrows come south and stay here in the winter. So the tree sparrows have departed now, and the chipping sparrows are in full swing. As the names here imply, the savanna sparrows and the field sparrows do love to be in the grassland, and it's easy to find these birds. I haven't seen, I saw one savanna in Bolton, not at Pine Hill Road yet. There are several field sparrows, as you heard from my recording, already at Pine Hill Road. The real prize in this area are these two rare sparrows. So the vesper sparrow can be seen other places, and I did see a report of Tim Spar saw a vesper sparrow this week in Westboro. So they're a little more common. They're known by the very distinct white eye ring and then a little bit thinner stripes on the breast. And I was pleased, the first vesper sparrow I've seen this season, I found out there this morning. The grasshopper sparrows are more rare. They're harder to find anyplace else. And they're hard to find in general. They tend to creep along the ground unless they want to mark their territory. Then they get up on a little stick like this and do their song or call. And their call sounds like a grasshopper. So we've been finding several nesting pairs at Pine Hill Road the last several years. So that's a big success story for the idea of managing this as a grassland. Now, I couldn't believe my luck finding this Blanding's turtle when I first got out of my car one morning. It was beyond the barrier to the private area, and it was just sitting there. I think it's probably a female that was probably going to lay eggs somewhere because it was that time of the spring. But these are rare turtles. They're known to breed south of Route 2 along the Nashua River. And then there's another section of them, I believe it's in Wisconsin, but it was quite unique, I thought, to find this at Pine Hill Road.
That's the only place they breed is here and in Wisconsin?
Yeah, they're very, very segmented.
They've done, I've seen people, I don't know if they're scientists or what, but they were at Oxbow National Refuge down there.
Yeah.
And they were banding the turtles.
Yeah.
They found a number of the,
Yeah, they're studying them because they're not common. They don't pay that kind of attention to the painted turtles that we see on every pond in the area. So next we'll move along Route 117 and then go north on Route 70 to the Cook Conservation Area. Now you won't see this sign up on the road. There's a sign on the road. You have to watch carefully because going 50 miles an hour north on Route 70, it's easy to miss. So this is perhaps the longest hike of the areas that I'm going to talk about. So this is the parking area of Route 70. And if you take this whole loop along the Nashua River and get close enough to 190 that you don't want to hear the noise, and then back through the woods here. Initially, you go downhill to a power line cut. So power line cuts are man-made woodland edges and small grassland meadows. So they provide great habitat for birds. And they also, because it's open, they allow us to see the birds as they're flying from one side to the other. So it's a great place to bird. So this shows that not as many birders go here, not as many checklists. This is higher now, but and 120 species, so that's pretty good. I think this is a better place to bird than these stats would suggest. So the eastern towhee is our largest sparrow. The scrubby, brushy areas of the power line cut are great habitat for it. This is the female with the dark brown head and back. It's a good place to find migrating warblers as well. So this photo of a chestnut-sided warbler has long been a favorite of mine. It used to be the screensaver on my phone, showing the bird singing his heart out. One of the highlights of the spring is the arrival of the Louisiana water thrush. So the Louisiana water thrush is not rare, but it's not common. As the name implies, it likes to, its habitat is along the water. So it's one of our earlier warblers. They arrive in about the second week of April. It showed up yesterday. This is a picture from yesterday. So like the American redstart, this is one of the warblers whose name doesn't include the word warbler. So further into the woods, we can see our state bird, the black-capped chickadee. And if we're lucky enough and quick enough, we can see golden-crowned kinglets in the winter, or now they're quite active right now as well. I can't help noticing butterflies along the way. This is a comma butterfly that was here this week. Susan and I were walking along the river last fall, and we were lucky enough to spot this great blue heron before we got close enough to spook it. So I was happy to be able to get this photograph. And I appreciate the oohs and ahs. This is a trout lily. They can form a yellow carpet on the floor of the forest in various areas in the spring, usually about the second week of May. A lot of things happen in the second week of May. So moving along, back south on Route 170 and then west on 117, Ballard Hill. Now, Ballard Hill is really just a power line cut. It's not well marked. So these signs are about the only thing you see other than the power lines. I haven't been brave enough to actually park in the weeds where it says park here. So there is a room to pull off 117 and just park alongside the road. So this area is managed by the Lancaster Land Trust. It's a power line cut, although there are trails that go off into the woods that aren't shown on this map. Now, if you see, the power line cut extends back to across Cook Conservation Area as well. So it's all really one ecosystem. I was there today, and there's a major project going on there. They've resurfaced the area with crushed gravel and then large 8x8 timbers. They're getting ready to do some kind of big project. I think they may be replacing, some of the poles are metal and some of them are wood. And I think they may be replacing the wooden power line poles. So it may not be the greatest place to bird right now. It's not a designated hotspot. This is my list from this time last April. I was able to see 23 species that one morning, so not a bad place to bird. Again, a power line cut, so good for sparrows. White-throated sparrows, particularly in the fall and winter. And again, the eastern towhee, this is the male, so black head and black back. And again, a field sparrow. The orange-crowned warbler is a western warbler, not commonly seen around here. I wasn't expecting it in April in Lancaster. I don't ever expect it, but so I was confused. I initially called it a common yellowthroat. But the joy of getting a photograph and posting it on eBird is there are experts that will look these things over and tell you, no, that's an orange crown. And so I was thrilled because this is like the third one I ever saw. I found these indigo buntings in the summer. The bird on the left is a female. She's carrying a grasshopper in her beak. That means that she has a nest with young in it. You know, birds don't carry food around just to carry food around. They either find something and eat it, or they take it to the young in the nest. On the right, juvenile male indigo bunting, plumage not fully mature yet. It's a good place to see raptors. This Cooper's hawk was flying back and forth in the open space. I'm calling it a Cooper's hawk as opposed to a sharp-shinned hawk because the Cooper's hawk tail feathers are a bit longer in the middle. So when it fans the tail, it makes this arc-like appearance. A sharp-shinned hawk is a little bit smaller, but that's hard to tell when you just see one bird. But the sharp-shinned tail feathers are longer on the side. So when they fan the tail, it tends to look more straight across. Black vultures are considered rare, although they're becoming more common. They're more of a southern or tropical species. And we distinguish them by looking at seeing the wing feathers are the lighter gray on the sides, whereas the turkey vulture, our more common vulture, the whole back of the wing is gray and ends up forming sort of a V shape. And you can also tell the difference because the black vulture's head is this dark gray, whereas the turkey vulture's head is red with a yellow beak. In the fall, winterberry can be quite striking. There are quite a number of winterberry bushes as you go down the power line cut there. So traveling west on 117 and south on Brockelman Road, we can come to the Lancaster Town Forest or the Blood Forest. You won't be able to see this stone marker, you won't be able to read the stone marker from the road, but the parking area is very obvious. So let me find my place here.
Now they've blocked off the opposite trail across the road.
Have they?
That goes out to 190.
Okay, I haven't tried to do that this year, so I didn't know that.
At least they've got a gate across it. I don't know if you guys.
Well, the gates are to keep cars out. Last time I walked in there, you can walk in. I'm not particularly fond of walking in because you get just a little ways in, you start hearing 190 right away, and it's not quite the walk in the woods kind of effect. All right, where are we here? So we came down, okay. So Brockelman Road and the P is for the parking area. So this is the western side that we were just talking about. If you're going up back east, you see this spur that goes up to the north. So this is important because it goes along the pond. So this map was either not drawn well or drawn before the beavers dammed up this area, because this little blue line, that's not a stream anymore, that's a pond. The beavers have dammed it up. The trees that were growing on the stream edge are dead in the middle. You can expect to see waterfowl in this pond. And I'm going to show you that in a minute. Also, the trail map is not quite accurate. So this part is on the map, and then, but right now, this part is not well marked. I've done my best to walk through there and put pink ribbons on the trees to try to mark where I think this trail is supposed to be. And if you're so inclined, people can go and try to follow the pink ribbons and if you make I'm obsessive about loops. I don't really like to go out and back. But so as you get here and then start traveling south again, you have to decide: are you going to cut across here or go to the southernmost part of the trail? And that's going to depend on how rainy it's been. I wouldn't try to do the southern part of the trail right now. You can get almost knee-deep water in some parts of that trail. And it's challenging to walk around that, right? We've had trouble. So I persuaded the powers that be to make this a eBird hotspot. It's a little embarrassing because the two eBirders there, it's me and one other guy that went with me one time. So if people are so inclined, go out and submit some lists, that would be great. But 75 species, that's not too bad. So as you walk up from the parking lot in May, you will start hearing the teacher, 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 or some people say pizza, pizza, pizza song of the ovenbird. If they're singing, they tend to be perched in the tree about 30 feet above the trail. So a little challenging to see. If you're lucky, sometimes they'll come down and feed on the ground. They won't be making any noise when they're feeding on the ground, but it's fun to be able to see them when they're on the ground. As you get closer to the water, it's common to see brown creepers. One time I was out there recording brown creepers, and I found 6 of them. And eBird said, "Oh, really?" So I had to say, "Yeah, really." Yellow rump warblers are common in the migration. Should be starting now. I haven't seen any, but I've seen reports of some. For about a month. So they will be everywhere, and you can see them here. Red-breasted nuthatches, depending on the season, and I'm not sure what all the factors are. Sometimes you can see them, sometimes you can't. I got this picture just the west side of Brockelman Road there. So I mentioned the spur that takes you up north along the pond. I was walking there and got down to the edge of the pond one day, and several wood ducks flushed and went to the other side. So I was disappointed. I like to take pictures of wood ducks. So I decided to see what would happen. So I leaned against a tree, gave it some time, and I saw, they were kind of swimming around, kind of forgot about me, were feeding in the water, gradually got close. They actually ended up getting about between me and the front row here. And so I was able to get these pictures. So on the left is male and female preening. The female's a little harder to see. On the right, 2 males swimming. I found this nest on the other side of the pond, and I had been seeing, one pileated woodpecker and then another pileated woodpecker. I was watching one going in and out of the hole, and then just perched on the side of the tree. And I heard the other one calling, so maybe it'll come. And I was lucky enough to be able to get both of them in the same picture. So the red-spotted purple I used to think was one of the swallowtail butterflies. It looks like a black swallowtail to me. But it doesn't have the swallowtail type appendages on the lower wing. So it's called a red-spotted purple, not a swallowtail. The mourning cloak butterfly actually has some kind of antifreeze system where it winters over and just is dormant during the winter. So as soon as the weather warms up a little bit, it's up and going. It doesn't have to wait. It doesn't have to migrate north. We don't have to wait for eggs to hatch and go through the whole butterfly cycle. So they're the first butterflies you can see in the spring. So traveling further south, Brockelman Road, Hilltop Road, George Hill Road, over to Bull Hill Road. This is the entrance to the Thayer Memorial Forest. So it depends on how many of the loops you take, but you can walk about 2.5 miles without repeating yourself. in this upper corner, there's a pond, and I'm going to show you a picture of that in a minute. It circles around almost back to Bolt Hill Road, where there's a house here. And I'll mention pine warblers up here, blue-winged warblers nesting in this area. So I took these pictures, one in the winter and one in the summer, so you can get a sense of how overgrown the trail gets. On the map, this area is marked as parking. I haven't been brave enough to pull my car into these weeds, so there is room on the road to park next by the entrance here. It's also important to know that right now the area is flooded, so you would need at least waterproof boots if you wanted to walk through there right now. Not knee-high boots, but you wouldn't want to wear a pair of sneakers. And then as the grass grows, it's easy to pick up ticks there, so take appropriate precautions. So this is also not considered a birding hotspot. This is one of my records from May at the height of migration season. I got 49 species that morning, so pretty good place. So it's a good place to find warblers in general. The chestnut-sided warblers tend to be in the sort of scrubby areas that the forest people, the New England forestry people, have cleared out some of the taller trees. The black-throated blue warblers like mountain laurel, and there are several places where the floor is just covered with mountain laurel. Pine warblers frequent the tall pine trees, as I showed you in the northeastern section of the forest, and the blue-winged warblers nest around a small meadow in the southeastern section there. Walking here in the summer, every few hundred yards you hear an eastern towhee calling, and I did hear and see one yesterday. Ovenbirds are common in the trees, not here yet. Scarlet tanagers like the tall trees, and there are plenty of tall evergreen trees. In fact, there's an area where there are a variety of species of spruce trees. I'm not an expert on how to name each one, but I can recognize them as spruce trees. But they're different. They're not. It's like somebody planted them. I really think this is not just a natural phenomenon that somebody was managing this area. So indigo buntings nest in the same area as the blue-winged warblers. So this is an immature indigo bunting. No blue in its feathers yet at all. Can you see the bird?
Yeah.
Okay. We also have Louisiana water thrushes here. And one summer there was an active nest where the pond is. I'm going to show you a picture in a minute. This one has what looks like a little tadpole of some sort in its beak. So this probably was also an adult carrying food to the nest. It's a good area for woodpeckers. So the pileated woodpecker is our biggest woodpecker. It's always fun to see it or hear its loud, raucous call. The red-bellied woodpecker in the middle is one of our more common woodpeckers. And in case you can't tell, she's right under a nest hole there. And I've seen her go in and out. I've seen the male go in and out too. So this is an active nest, or at least starting to be an active nest. Sometimes it looks like it's going to be an active nest, and then for whatever reason they go somewhere else. But so far it seems like an active nest. And the yellow-bellied sapsucker is relatively common here. This is one of our less common woodpeckers. The first time Susan and I ever walked in this area, we found one of these woodpeckers in the Thayer graveyard area. And I've been finding them intermittently since then. And I actually did get to see one yesterday. So on the left is the entrance to the Thayer family cemetery. There are half a dozen graves there or so, large stone grave markers flush to the ground. I don't know if they planned it this way, but good strategy if you're going to have a cemetery that ends up not being managed. There's no gravestones to knock over. So on the right is the pond I was talking about. This is when it was very full. In the summer, it tends to dry out, and the foreground area is just sort of a wet mud area. So this is where I found the Louisiana water thrushes nesting. In the second week of May or so, this deciduous rhododendron blooms. They make a very colorful pink display. My best guess by internet research is that this is a species called Rhododendron vasii. If I'm right, it's a native to North Carolina mountains. So it was naturalized here, presumably by the Thayer family. But it covers a large area. So if you get out there when they're blooming, it's quite amazing. I call this the porcupine tree. So on the right, that's the best picture of a porcupine I've been able to get here. But that pile at the base of the tree, that's not wood shavings, that's animal dung.
Oh.
And I took this middle picture this winter after it snowed just to demonstrate that this is active. There's more stuff was added on top of the snow. So I think the porcupines live up in this hollow tree. I've never been able to actually see them in it. You can also see trails going away from the tree in either direction. In the snow, it was easy to see, but after the snow melted, I could still see their trails. A number of deer live in this area. You can see their tracks in the snow in the winter, both on the people trails and also crisscrossing the people trails. Now we're going back to the center of town to the Dexter Drumlin. So from here, it's actually a short drive to the Dexter Drumlin. So Dexter Drumlin is an area managed by the trustees of reservations. A drumlin is a glacial remnant. Glaciers push scattered stones and debris into a pile, and then as the glacier recedes, they leave these small hills. And there are several of them in the area. If you walk up the drumlin, it feels a lot steeper than this picture would suggest. Most of the time when I'm walking around because I want to see the birds at the edges. The walk around is just about a mile, so this is not a strenuous hike. The joy of this area is that the edges of the drumlin and the drumlin itself offer habitat for various kinds of birds. It is a birding hotspot, so you can see 231 birders, much better than my 2 birders at Thayer Memorial Forest. At Lancaster Forest.
Have you ever seen sandhill cranes there?
Yes, I'll show you a picture in a minute. In the winter, I frequently find a mockingbird, and bluebirds can be found there pretty much around the year. I took a picture of this private sign just to emphasize that the adjacent field is a privately owned and managed hay field. So we are welcome to look out there, and we do, but we're not welcome to walk out there. In the late winter and early spring, there are vernal pools out on the hayfield, and they attract a large number of birds, especially Canada geese. But once in a while, there's a less common goose or bird there. So this smaller bird with the sort of stubby bill and a little bit browner breast is called a cackling goose. If you see a birder out there with a scope just looking at a flock of geese, they're looking for this bird or one of the other rare geese that sometimes accompany the Canada geese flocks. Sometimes you get other sorts of rare birds. So eastern meadowlarks migrate through. They don't seem to nest here. I was just lucky enough to see this one coming down the drumlin toward me as I started walking out onto the area. They usually don't get as close as this to allow for photographs. Now, on the right, these very tall sandhill cranes have been coming to and actually arriving in January and February for the last several years. Sadly, they didn't show up this year. So I don't know if that's the end of an era here or not, but they're quite exciting. They're tall birds, and they're uncommon in New England. They are relatively common in the west. They migrate from Arizona up to Nebraska and then back in large flocks. But to see 2 or 3 of them here is great.
We didn't just miss them, they didn't come this year?
A couple people have, one person said he heard one bugling at Bolton Flats. One person said he saw one briefly at Bolton Flats. I've been to Bolton Flats a number of times, I haven't seen them. And I've been to the Drumlin many times, and they're not there.
The last 2 years, we saw them at the Drumlin,
Yeah.
but not this year.
Yeah, they haven't been here.
We did see one fly over, when was it, Tuesday, the Monday?
Good.
Over Wachusett Meadow.
Oh, great.
Sanctuary. in
Yeah,
Princeton.
great. So there's a stream along the Langan Road side that has now been dammed up by beavers. So these are hooded mergansers that I took a picture of. These are birds that can stay here through the winter. They usually nest further north, but they can nest around here as well. I've seen a pair of wood ducks hanging out there this spring. If you see a theme, I like taking pictures of wood ducks. They're sort of the supermodels of New England birding. It's so pretty. I caught this barred owl napping, sitting in a tree just along Langan Road there. It's kind of a one-time experience seeing a barred owl there. This kestrel was actually perching on a kestrel box. I don't know if they've ever had kestrels actually nesting in that box or not. Right now, there is a pair of kestrels that are hanging out there. And today I was looking at the male, and then as the male flew off, the female kind of appeared all of a sudden. So I didn't actually see her come out of the box, but I sort of, out of the corner of my eye, it sort of looked like she had been in the box. So hopefully they're going to nest there. It's right on the edge of the Drumlin, the trustees of reservation area, so it's kind of a public area. So I don't know if they're going to be bold enough to nest there or not. Yeah.
They nested there a couple of years ago.
Oh, great. Yeah. Well, maybe they
I
will.
didn't see them last year.
Yeah. They really look like they're interested right now. So.
We've seen the swans in the field.
Yeah.
Swans.
It's amazing. You get the field flooded and the ducks and waterfowl just act like it's a lake. So I came on this red-tailed hawk just perched over the stream, and I could tell it was watching me. So I was getting closer. I thought, all right, I better get ready to take this picture. And sure enough, it took off, and I was able to get the shot just as it took off. So the area is being managed for grassland birds again. That means they don't mow the grass on the Drumlin until nesting season is over. So they'll hay that big field, the commercial field, well before they mow the grass on the Drumlin. So this is a savanna sparrow. In case you can't tell, the wind was blowing. It looked to me like this sparrow was holding on for dear life. The less common birds that do nest there are the bobolinks. So this is the male on the left with the black with the yellow on the back of the head. And then the female is more sparrow-like. And if you're not used to looking at it, you could mistake it for something else. I always think of the word bobolink. The bobo it means clown in Spanish. And if you hear the call, it's sort of a chuckling, bubbling kind of sound. I put those two things together. It's not uncommon to see coyotes in the hayfield or even walking across the Drumlin. So I don't know how the bobolinks managed to nest there, because obviously the coyote could easily be a predator for their babies, but they seem to make it work somehow. Sometimes you see other things flying over the Drumlin. I actually saw this guy set up the paraplane, turn that fan on, and run across the Drumlin and take off. It's like, how did he do that? And he flew up and flew around for about 20 minutes and then landed and folded everything, put it back in his pickup truck and took off. So the butterfly, this is the black swallowtail. So you can see the swallow-like appendages on the lower wing here. You don't have to necessarily go to a conservation area to see interesting birds. These birds were flying over Town Hall when I came out of the community center one day. And I had been birding, so I had my camera in the car. I got the shot. So this is a mature bald eagle. This is the more classic bald eagle plumage that you're used to seeing. And a raven hassling the bald eagle for reasons I don't know. The sandhill cranes sometimes land and feed in the farm fields in the center of town, toward the center of town. So keep your eyes open. I've been watching. They haven't been on the Center Bridge Road field this year either. So if you're interested, we may be doing a presentation this fall on birds that you can't find in Lancaster.